Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel BethChatsBooks. Now today's video is going to be my November wrap up. So without further ado, let's just get straight stuck in. Now before I go through the books, I just want to say I'm sorry if you can hear any background noise. I've currently got my dehumidifier on because it's been very wet the last couple of days, so I just want to air out the room. And also, while I am just filming right now, it's actually snowing outside, which is really exciting. So I put the dehumidifier on because obviously the snow and cold weather makes it very damp in here at the moment. So that's the whirring in the background, sorry about that. Now, I'm going to get on with the books. Now, this month has been a pretty disappointing reading month. I've only managed to achieve 4 books, which is a little bit tragic, considering I had a lot more on the list. So as I go through the books, I have a bit of a story of the month. One particular book in the collection really slowed down the reading process and to some extent made the rest of the reading a little bit more tiresome. That particular book was very difficult for me to get through. If you follow me on Goodreads, you can go back through my month and you'll probably guess which book it is. But there you can get a bit more of a detailed review of how I felt about that book, as I'm going to be a bit more concise on this. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the books. So the first one I read this month was Alice Munro's Dear Life. Now, I mentioned in previous book hauls, and I think in my November TBR, which I'll link down below, that I tried to read this a few months back and found it quite difficult to get into. And that still really stands. I tried to read it again this month, and it did take quite a long time to get into this particular one. There's a lot of stories which I didn't expect, so in the inside cover, I'll just get to that, there is a whole page of short stories. I thought there was going to be a lot less, if you just want to see there. And overall, I had quite a disappointing reading month with this particular book because a lot of people praise her, that she really writes very well about normal everyday life, but the problem for me is that this particular collection was very like real life, but it was mundane and bland and normal. So a lot of the stories to me bled into each other, the characters were very similar, the plot lines were not very memorable at all, to be honest. There's about 2 out of the entire collection that I can vaguely remember, which was the first 2. So all in all, they weren't very memorable at all. I think I gave this 3 stars, a very middle road kind of reading experience. I'd love to know if you guys love this, because I know it got so much praise. She's classed as a Canadian classic author, and everyone said this was her best work, which really surprised me because I just found this quite tiresome and long to get through. I'd also really appreciate your opinions on reading short stories, because I read these one straight after another as if I was reading a normal book, and maybe that means that I haven't really got the most out of each individual story, but I wanted to get it done and ticked off the reading month, so that's how I usually read books. So I don't know if short story collections are slightly different, but yeah, I don't really have much more to say. It was just a middle road read. Can't remember much of the characters. It didn't give me an overall sense of Canadian life or being a Canadian or of anything really. The only good thing I can say is that there was diversity in the characters. So there was, at the beginning there was quite a lot of women protagonists, but then they did have male protagonists in here, so it did have a collection overall of all of society, but it was just middle road. And then the next one that I read was Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Now this one, I needed a bit of a pick-me-up because, and I'll go on to more detail about that, but at the beginning of the month originally I started to read The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North and had to abandon it because I got very stressed out by the experience. So I came to this. I wanted something light and enjoyable. I gave this 4 stars, I believe 4 stars, because I fell in love with the character. She was very interesting. What was really good is I thought she would get very repetitive because the way that the book is written as a children's book kind of reinforces what a character she is, but she gets up to all kinds of excursions, and she has a bit of a romantic plot as well. The description of the Canadian landscape was beautiful in this. It talks about all the seasons, and in Prince Edward Islands, which is where it's based, they have all the beautiful seasons, summer, spring, winter and autumn at their full and their brightest, which is beautiful because living in the UK you don't always get all of your seasons perfectly pronounced within your nature, so this was beautiful. She was a very interesting character because she has a lot of gusto about her, a lot of spirit, and that's what was important about her. At the beginning of the book, a lot of people comment that she was scrawny and not very pretty, but that it didn't matter how she looked. She grew in to her looks and everybody fell in love with her as a character. Also, what I really liked about this book is it emphasised that she was clever and she worked hard and she was learning from all her mistakes, trying to be a good person, to use her manners and be polite, but also her intelligence was a big part of the book, which I really liked because I think that is way more important than your looks. So she's a great advocate for young kids. I really wish I had read this when I was younger, because she would have been a great heroine of mine to look up to, that your brain is more important than your looks, and to have a lot of character like her and be a lovable character. So I really enjoyed that. I only gave it 4 stars because it is a children's book, so obviously the adventures weren't really complicated, it wasn't very drawn out, there wasn't a lot of meat on the bones because it's a children's book. It's just about introducing them to a character and a fun time and a fun little world, which is exactly what it did. 4 stars, fantastic children's book. It's a new children's classic of mine. So there's that one. And then on to Harry August, who has been doing my head in the entire month. So I did begin to read him right at the beginning of the month. So in my logbook it says that I started on about the 8th of November and eventually finished him on 26th, 27th, because I found this really, really tiresome. I think I gave it 1.5/2 out of 5 stars because it was so tedious to read. So that the plot line is about Harry August, who I can't pronounce what it's called. He is a thing, because I can't pronounce what it is, I forgot what it's called, where you are a being that repeats your lives. So every time he dies, he goes back to being born at the train station and being raised by foster parents who are the groundskeepers of his biological dad because his mum dies in childbirth. And he is meant to kind of go on adventures, meet other people that are like him, and then he meets a kind of baddie that's like him that he wants to save. But overall, the repetition of all the different lives and the way that it intersected, that you would be on his 5th life and then it would skip to his 27th life where he'd tell you this random anecdote that vaguely helped the plot along almost 10 chapters after it was said. A lot of the book is dedicated to his relationship with the bad character, and there seems to be at one point randomly interspersed a kind of homoerotic undertone to their relationship, which he says something about how he would fuck him if he asked him to, because their relationship's so much more intimate than that now, which I felt really was unnecessary at that point in the plot. There was no hint previously to a homoerotic relationship. This is a bad guy who's trying to ruin every of these beings that repeats their lives. He's trying to destroy them one by one. This man has tortured Harry August's character. It just didn't fit for me, so I just didn't understand why she tried to throw that in there kind of near the end of the book. The repetition was just really tedious for me, so I literally tried to stop and start this book so many times, and I was going to DNF it, and then I thought, no, I really want to just get it done. It's one of those things that was lingering over me and I just wanted to get it read. I just found the writing style really disappointing. It didn't explain things very well. I like a book where we've got some growth and development. There doesn't necessarily have to be a plot, but I want to be able to dissect a character or something meaty to go on, and this literally was like a loop. And I know a lot of people will say, well, that's because of the style of the book, it's repeating lives, but there was no addition. If you're just hearing somebody's life repeatedly, with a few interspersed homoerotic notions that weren't accurate, and, you know, him musing on things all the time, it was just, I can't express. I just really, really did not enjoy this at all. So I'd love to know if anybody did enjoy this, what you thought. My sister was really angry at me because she really enjoyed this, and I said, every time you recommend me a book, I hate it. I really don't enjoy it. So I expected this to be really well written. I expected there to be some progression of a plot. If this was ever made into a film, it would be one of those 3-hour-long films. This was quite a lengthy book, and half of it could have been chopped. It was irrelevant. It was really tediously drawn out, not engaging, crap in my opinion. But I'd love to know if anybody did like it and why you like it, you know. But yeah, I wouldn't even bother, is my opinion. And then, so I was really frustrated the whole month because I'd had a fairly good read with Green Gables, but it was a children's book, and I hadn't had anything in the month that had made me like, yes, This has been a really good month. I've also been really busy at work, so reading had become a little bit tedious. I wanted something that engaged me without me having to work for it. So I wanted a book where I could just escape after work, after a stressful day, but without having to work for it. And I feel like the other two books and the first 15 lives of Harry August were making you try and work for that plot and work for that world. It didn't just naturally build around you. But then this one was a game changer this month, which I was really happy about, which is Margaret Lawrence's The Stone Angel. Now this is absolutely beautifully written. The way she describes scenery, houses, relationships, it's so intricately and beautifully woven. It's not boastful in its content. A lot of people who can write very well litter sentences with so much that's going on as a way to show off that they can structure sentences that way, and she's not like that. It's lyrical, it's beautiful. Now this follows the character of Hagar Shipley, who is an aging woman. She's 90 at this book, and it kind of does a few flashbacks, but not in a cringy way. I've never seen flashbacks done so beautifully, so correctly before. A lot of the time authors get overexcited and they want their flashbacks to be more interesting in the plot, and they weren't. They were very useful to the plot. It has a big reveal about her relationship with her youngest son, and it beautifully brings out that story. It doesn't give you a big reveal and then go back and then mess around with your head. It slowly introduces you to that character. In the beginning she describes how much she loves him, how it was her favourite, and then you slowly get to learn of his faults. You slowly get to learn Hagar's own faults, her husband's faults, the rest of her children's, her society's fault, her relationship with her father. But they're all beautiful. And then into her old age, she's living with her eldest son and his wife Doris, and she's having forgetful moments. The way that Margaret Lawrence can describe the aging process, she describes a woman, an older woman that we've all met once in our lives. It might be our own grandmother, our own mother, depending on where you are in your life. But this element where she can sink into her past and really believe she's talking to someone that's not there, or the way her mind articulates what's going on and she can't see the bigger picture of her condition. It's absolutely beautiful. And what was really amazing is halfway through the book she leaves her house because she's really worried she's going to be put in a home, and I was really worried that that part would go kind of absurd and not fit in with the rest of the tone of the book. But she did it beautifully. To have her go on a bus on her own at 90 and find an abandoned shed to live in, and it still be convincing and it still be true to the tone of the book, is an absolute credit to the author. It's very short as well. It's only 10 chapters, so it was really beautiful reading experience because it wasn't intense and heavy. I could do a chapter a night or 2 chapters a night and get it done by the end of the week. But it was pure escapism. It made me have so many thoughts on the aging process. Hagar is a very, very human character. She's the most human and honest depiction of a person I've ever seen in character form. She's got faults, she's stubborn, but she represents so much of our own experience of our own family, the women we know in our lives, but our internal women, the women that we are, and how she views stuff. It's a very interesting look at prairie life in Canada as well, society at that time, and how she felt she was meant to behave. It's just beautiful. I'm so glad I read this because based on the cover it looks a bit boring. It's not a beautiful edition of the cover. I'd never heard of her before, but this is one of her most acclaimed works. I think I gave this 4.5. The only reason I didn't give it 5 is purely because, and I think I'll probably in hindsight might change my mind to a 5 because I'm feeling, as I'm talking about it now, a lot stronger than I did when I finished it. It's just that there's a few characters like Bram and John that really got my goat. So I feel like a lot of 5 stars, you end up adoring everybody and everything about the plot. When you have a few niggles with characters, I think that's why I gave it 4.5. So yeah, amazing book. Go read it if you can. Very short, beautifully written, and I'd recommend it to all women. I think it's a really interesting look at women. So that's everything I read in the month of November. Sorry there wasn't more. I'll be bringing my December TBR out really soon, but if you want to hit the subscribe button down below so that you can be alerted when that video is coming out and any other future videos I do, then please feel free to subscribe. And I'll see you very soon for my December TBR video. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.